what would you recommend to an attendee, an event attendee? How to maximize their participation, their time investment,
Mm,
their
okay.
overall investment with everything that's going on, busy schedules, distractions, a new place, the travel. Am I going to go to the right session? That there's a lot of mind escape there. What do you
I see.
recommend?
Right. So for the attendees, I actually believe that, and I always say that events are a two-way street. Of course, the biggest chunk of responsibility lies with the organizers about how experiences go. But attendees are also responsible about making maximum out of it, right? Because if you don't prepare before attending an event, if you don't do your homework, then your outcomes could be worse. And what I mean by homework is that you need to learn about who's going to be at that event, what your goals are, think that through in detail, and be mentally prepared for what you are going to do at the event. And again, a lot of the times people get overwhelmed at the event because the environment naturally is overwhelming, right? There are a lot of people, a lot of novelty, bright lights, crowds, noises. So it's sensory overload, cognitive overload. And you need to keep that in mind and be mindful about how you break down your time at the event so that it becomes the most effective time, because event happens within 1 or 2 days, right? So you, at the same time, you want, as an attendee, you want to get a maximum out of it, but at the same time you have to remember that if you are going to chase every single thing at the event that you planned, then you get fatigued, you get socially exhausted, and this is not going to serve you well, right? So you need to plan your event carefully and reserve time for breaks, reserve time to take care of yourself mentally and physically. So these are some of the things that I would say attendees should keep in mind first.
Yeah, those are great tips. I mean, reading the agenda, taking a look at the map, your location of the hotel, so that you can anticipate and mitigate and reduce a lot of the unknowns, I think is great. And then you're not going to be able to do everything and anything, right? But even if you, I hear you're saying just set up some goals. I want to do some connect with X number of new people, potential clients. I want to go to a couple of sessions that are a little bit outside of my area of expertise. I want to have some open free time so that some unexpected, spontaneous moments can happen. But as event professionals are really expanding the events to such a broad scope of engagement, whether it's in the breakout sessions, the general sessions, the coffee breaks, the receptions, all sorts of activations. As the attendee, as you say, it's a two-way street. So we both have to do the homework beforehand, create a little bit of a plan, and at the same time, bring ourselves forth to get the most out of it. Victoria, staying on the same question, but turning it on its head a little bit, how then are, knowing the psychology of attendees going in? Not everybody's going to be the perfect attendee doing the homework beforehand, literally mapping it out and making goals. Some might do it a little bit by memory or by instinct. But on the other side of the coin, understanding that psychology of the attendees, how does that influence the design and the execution of successful event experiences produced by these event professionals?
I think a lot of science-based solutions that event professionals can use, they revolve around invisible things that
Okay.
are not obviously linked to the success of the event.
Invisible
And
things like they're not right in our view.
Invisible things in a way that there is no direct connection between that factor, the outcomes. So let me give you an example. There was a study recently done, and they found that people like a speaker and their content more when they listen to them via headphones and not via speakers. So the organizers can change that and ask people to wear headphones. And just because of this tweak, you potentially influence how the speaker is perceived, and you potentially influence the outcomes of the content delivered, right?
Did they find that with the headphones, people paid more attention or
They
distinctive difference?
Yes, they tested how speaker was perceived. And so people, when they listened to a speaker via headphones, they found they perceived speaker as a warmer person, and they felt more empathy towards the speaker.
I'm wondering if that's because the audio is physically that much closer to them and it was almost
Yes.
like, a bedtime story or something.
Yes, there are a couple of reasons why it happens, and researchers they kind of discuss that in a paper. But it's a good example of how not obvious thing can improve the outcomes. You see what I mean?
Sure.
It is because it's not really obvious or well known that you can do this and receive a better outcomes
Yeah.
for your speakers,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of science-based solutions are like that. And then, some things that come from research, from studies, they can give you some creative ideas. We talk a lot about the influence, the impact of nature on people's well-being, people's mood, right? And there was a report recently discussing how people in general are realizing the power of connecting with nature, and consequently their behavior changes. So this understanding can lead to all sorts of creative ideas for them professionals. Like, for example, instead of networking breaks, we can introduce networking hikes, right? Why not? Or
Right.
you can do some biophilic design, meaning that you can have some nature-inspired elements in the event space. So this is how, again, ideas can be sparked due to understanding what science teaches us about people's behavior and mind. Talking about networking, by the way, again, we know that people are social creatures and we are wired to connect. How come that networking at events is considered one of the toughest things to do for
Interesting. Yeah.
everyone? For everyone, right? Regardless of their status, how self confident they are, it's a tough thing to do. And I think, again, it happens because human psychology has not been the focus. So we need to think more about what's going on in the mind when people think or attempt to network, right? And if we think about that, then we realize that many feel fear of rejection. Many experience social fatigue or sensory overload that I just mentioned. And these are individual factors. Then you add social factors. What are the perceived norms and encourage behavior at this event? Are organizers communicating these norms to their audience? Then you add environmental factors. Is the space conducive to effective networking at all? Are there zones or comfortable seating that signal that this is the place to interact, to communicate, to start a conversation? And now, when you look at networking from this angle, then you start to come up again with ideas based on human psychology. Okay, what if we have conference buddy for those who are attending first time? Or what if we create quiet zones? What if we add networking tips and reminders in the pre-event communication? And again, I think most of the things that I just mentioned, you probably have already experienced it, and many organizers do this more often. But my point is that it's not new insights. No, science has known this for a long time. So we event professionals could have benefited from we event professionals could have benefited from it much earlier. And that's my
Yeah.
point. So the same applies basically for the current and future insights. So if you're not following up right now, if you're not in the know, then you're missing out.
Yeah. One of the guests we've had on our podcast is Liz Lathan, who is very involved with engaging in new creative ways and breaking the mold, breaking the past, creating new methods. And her message is just that. Create an environment that's conducive, have some fire starters, meaning, not just a dark bar with loud music and hey, how can you have a meaningful connection and meaningful conversation? Maybe, but highly likely overall, it's not optimal, right? Another guest that we've had on the show on our podcast is a gentleman who works in the world of health and well-being, and a popular topic is grounding, where literally when you travel and you get to a place, you get into bare feet and you put your feet on the ground.
Mhm.
And I was just thinking maybe we could bring in grass, like real grass, like sod, and have an area where you have to take your shoes off, have a little cubby hole or whatever for people to put their shoes, and they can just stand on grass or even some pebbles, because it activates the neurons that are at the bottom of your feet. And that could be another way. It's also a conversation starter. And you don't
Yes,
have to leave a big convention center. You can have a little, 5 square meters or something. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of space, but it's an area where you can connect with nature in a very particular kind of way. So
absolutely. I love this idea.
let's take that forward because I know, Victoria, you love to go to the coast and love to be near the water and connect with nature. And unfortunately, not every either hotel meeting room or convention center has easy access to those kind of spaces to go out and connect with that much ease. But we do make activities available for attendees to go play golf or go on other types of even shopping trips. Why not, as you said, a hike, and with the intention of having the context be, networking or meaningfully connect with people that you can engage with for your work. It's a different kind of way to do it. I think that that's
Absolutely.
cool.